The year is 624, the month is Ramadan, and the day that is about to change the course of history has just dawned. In a dry valley in the heart of Arabia, two armies face each other. On one side, 950 Quraysh warriors, armed, organized, and confident. On the other, only 313 Muslims, with limited resources, scarce horses, and many of them barefoot. The disproportion was staggering. But something in that small army kept them standing. It was not weaponry, it was not numbers, it was an unshakable conviction that they were on the right side. And on that day, the Arab world would never be the same. This is the Battle of Badr. To understand what was at stake in that valley, we need to go back a little. The city of Mecca, in what is today Saudi Arabia, was controlled by a powerful tribe called the Quraysh. They dominated the trade, politics, and religion of the region. When a man named Muhammad began preaching a new faith, Islam, the Quraysh saw it as a direct threat to their power. The persecution was brutal. Muslims were tortured, boycotted, and forced to abandon their homes and all their belongings in Mecca, migrating to the city of Medina, about 250 miles to the north. This conflict was not merely religious. It was a dispute over survival, territory, and power. And Badr would be the first great test to determine whether Islam and its followers had a future. 2 years after the forced migration, both sides finally met face to face. And what happened in that valley would forever shift the balance of power in the Arab world. But before we continue, if you are enjoying this content, consider subscribing to the channel. It is free, takes less than 10 seconds, and helps us keep bringing stories like this one. Now, let us get back to the Valley of Badr. It all started with a caravan. The Quraysh had organized one of the largest trade routes in the region, led by Abu Sufyan, one of the most influential men in Mecca. But this caravan was not carrying only Quraysh merchandise. It was also carrying goods that had been seized from the Muslims, everything that had been taken by force when they were driven out of Mecca. When the news reached Medina, the Prophet Muhammad gathered his companions. The message was clear. Those goods belonged to the Muslims, and the time to act had come. He told his men, "Whoever has an animal to ride, come with us." The response was immediate. There was such eagerness to take part that fathers and sons drew lots to decide who would have the honor of going. The assembled army had 313 men, only 2 horses and 70 camels for everyone. The Prophet himself shared a camel with 2 other companions, refusing any privilege. When it was his turn to walk, the others offered him the mount. He refused, saying he needed his merits just as much as any of them. But while the Muslims were marching, Abu Sufyan had already been warned. Fearing a confrontation, he redirected the caravan along a different route and sent a messenger to Mecca asking for reinforcements. The messenger arrived running through the streets, shouting, "Muhammad and his men are coming! All your wealth is at risk!" And Mecca responded with full force. Mecca assembled an army of 950 warriors, 100 of them on horseback, 700 camels, full weaponry. Leading this army was Abu Jahl, one of the men who had most relentlessly persecuted the Muslims from the very beginning. For him, this was the perfect opportunity to put an end to everything once and for all. On the way, Abu Jahl received a message from Abu Sufyan himself. "The caravan is safe, you can turn back." Most of the army wanted to return, but Abu Jahl refused. He had nearly 1,000 men under his command and had no intention of wasting that opportunity. He told his men, "We march to Badr, we stay 3 days, we celebrate, and we show every Arab tribe that we are the dominant force in this region." When the news reached the Prophet, he gathered his companions to decide what to do. One of the first to speak was Miqdad from among the migrants. "We will not act as cowards. We are with you until the end." Then Sa'd ibn Mu'adh spoke, representing the people of Medina. "We believe in you. Trust us. Go wherever your Lord commands, and we will go with you." With that, the decision was made. They would fight. The Prophet then positioned his army with great care. He took control of the water wells of Badr following the suggestion of one of his commanders, Hubab ibn al-Mundhir. The idea was simple and effective. Fill a reservoir for the Muslims and seal off every other well. The enemy would arrive at the battlefield without access to water. In a scorching desert, that could prove decisive. When the two armies finally faced each other in the valley of Badr, the difference was visible to the naked eye. On one side, cries of faith echoed across the field. On the other, war drums and songs. On one side, men fighting for survival and conviction. On the other, an army fighting to hold on to power and crush an idea that threatened their dominance. The battle began with a duel, as was tradition. 3 Quraysh warriors stepped forward, Utbah ibn Rabi'a, his brother Shayba, and his son Walid. The Prophet sent 3 of his most feared fighters, Hamza, Ali, and Ubaidah. In just a few strikes, Hamza brought down Shayba and Ali brought down Walid. Ubaidah fought a longer duel with Utbah, and when Hamza and Ali rushed to help, Utbah was defeated. The 3 most powerful Quraysh warriors lay on the ground before the real battle had even begun. Shock swept through the enemy army, but Abu Jahl tried to rally his men. He shouted, "Do not be shaken by this! Victory is still ours!" And he ordered the advance. The Battle of Badr entered its most intense phase. The Prophet fought on the front line alongside his men. Ali ibn Abi Talib would later say, "On that day, the most courageous of all was him." No one was closer to the enemy than the Prophet. It was then that Abu Jahl met his end. 2 young warriors, Mu'ad and Muawid, located him on the field. He underestimated them, calling them reckless boys. It was his last mistake. Mu'ad struck his leg, Muawid delivered the next blow, and Abu Jahl fell. When Abdullah ibn Mas'ud found him still breathing, Abu Jahl still tried to display arrogance. Ibn Mas'ud said, "Victory belongs to Allah and His Messenger," and with that, he ended his life. With the death of their main leaders, the Quraysh army collapsed. Men who had arrived confident and with numerical superiority were now running through the desert without looking back. The Battle of Badr was over, and the result was impossible to ignore. The final numbers were striking. On the Quraysh side, 70 warriors killed and another 70 captured. On the Muslim side, 14 fallen. An army 3 times smaller had defeated a military force far superior in equipment, cavalry, and experience, and now there were 70 prisoners to deal with. The Prophet established 2 conditions for the release of the captives. Each prisoner could either pay a ransom in currency or teach 10 children of Medina how to read and write. That decision spoke volumes about the values guiding that community. In the middle of the 7th century, in the midst of an armed conflict, knowledge was treated as a currency as valuable as gold. Among the captives was Abbas, the Prophet's own uncle, who had fought on the Quraysh side. When he said he had no money to pay the ransom, the Prophet surprised him. He described in detail a private conversation Abbas had held with his wife before departing, including how he had divided his gold among his children in case he did not return. No one but the 2 of them could have known that. Abbas was speechless. In that moment, he declared his faith in Islam. He returned to Mecca, kept his conversion secret, and began sending information to the Prophet from inside the enemy city. But the victory came with grief. Upon returning to Medina, the Prophet learned that his daughter Ruqayya had passed away while he was on the battlefield. He had not been able to say goodbye. It was one more loss in a life marked by hardship. Before Ruqayya, he had already lost 2 young sons. But it was precisely this ability to bear loss and press forward that made the Prophet an enduring example for his followers. In Mecca, the news of the defeat struck like a verdict. Abu Lahab, one of Islam's fiercest enemies, could not bear the humiliation. Consumed by rage and grief, he died just days later. The Battle of Badr was not merely a military victory, it was a moment that redefined the balance of power across the entire Arabian Peninsula. A group of 313 men, many of them barefoot and without adequate weapons, had defeated a professional army of 950 warriors in a dry valley in the heart of what is today Saudi Arabia. And the Arab world never looked at the Muslims the same way again. Before Badr, Muslims were seen as refugees, driven out of their own city, without land, without wealth, and without strength. After Badr, tribes that had previously ignored Medina began seeking alliances with it. The Quraysh, who had arrived at the valley singing and beating drums, returned to Mecca in silence, carrying their losses. 70 of their finest men dead, another 70 captured, their most powerful leaders gone in a single day. But perhaps the most lasting legacy of Badr is not found in the numbers. It lies in the decision made after the battle. By choosing knowledge as a form of ransom, that community left a message that has crossed centuries. Wars may be won with swords, but civilizations are built with education. A lesson that more than 1,400 years later is still worth remembering. If you made it this far, thank you sincerely. This kind of story deserves to be known, and that is exactly what this channel is here for. If you are not yet subscribed, now is the time. It is free, takes just seconds, and helps us keep bringing content like this. See you in the next episode.